Okay, great. We are recording. Hello,
Yeah.
you beautiful rejects out there. How are you today? I hope you're doing fantastic. I hope rejection has served you in every single way possible to have you right here listening to another one of these beautiful conversations that we're going to have today. And today I have one of my longest friends, maybe
Yep.
the longest person that I've been friends with that I've known since I was a little kid, Kevin Tancharoen.
Hello. Yeah, we've known each other since we were under 10 or maybe 10 or something crazy like that.
Yeah,
I think it was Mrs. Santa Claus was the first thing, or even before that, we did a Walter Jones Power Rangers dance instructional video,
yeah.
which I recently found footage of, and I believe I sent it to you. So
You did.
great.
I think I have yet to post it like you did. But it's actually making its way around right now. There's a meme going around about have you seen the dance battle scene in it with the one guy in the playground? I think you're in the background.
Yes,
That's going
I
around
am
right
there.
now.
I'm there somewhere, but that was like I remember that being such a big dream come true because I was such a big Power Ranger fan. And actually, speaking of rejection, I remember I was so excited to audition for. They did an episode that I guess like some of the Power Rangers became young, right? And
Okay.
there was an Asian for the first time. There was an Asian guy Power Ranger and had curly hair, and I had curly hair when I was younger. So I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get this. I do martial arts, and I didn't get it. I remember
How?
not getting it. To be honest, probably my acting was terrible, even for Power Rangers.
No, not possible.
I'm sure it was something like that, or they found a kid who just kind of matched the guy's personality a little better. But I remember being so bummed out about that. But then I got the Walter Jones one, and that ended up being perfect for me. I didn't get to be a Power Ranger, but I got to be around all of the OG Power Rangers, like the original, the late Trini, and the Red Ranger, who was named Jason. I think his real name's Brian, and then Walter Jones, who played Zach. So it was like those were my three favorites.
Was it Austin Butler one of them too?
No,
For
it was
some reason.
Austin St. John was the
That one.
first Red Ranger. Yeah,
That one.
Austin Butler. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe in like the later ones he did, but I'm not aware of that.
That name came to me out of nowhere, so it could
Yeah.
be from Barney for all I know. I really have no idea
Uh
where
huh.
that came from.
Uh-huh.
I was so funny because I had the biggest crush on that Ranger, the Red Ranger. That wasn't our thing. Like, first of all, let's talk about how we connected. We're nerds. Me and Kevin are
Yes.
nerds. So that's how
Yes.
we really connected. Besides being entertainers and doing all these things, we have the same interests. Power Rangers, sci-fi,
Hmm.
brilliant, video games, like you name it, we are nerds. And that's how we
That's
really
right.
became. It was easy for us to connect on that level for sure. But when we were shooting that, I had the biggest crush on that. Watching the show too, and it was back then where I didn't, I was aware, but I like definitely couldn't show it or be it or anything like that. And it was
Of
so hard
course.
for me to be around him because I was like,
Yeah, and I'm sure because you weren't even really fully dealing with that part of your life yet at all.
mm-mm.
So that must have been confusing. Also, we were impressionable age, like we were. It wasn't quite puberty yet, but we had crushes. It wasn't. It was an interesting, confused age to be trying to figure out who
Daisy.
the heck you were, especially identity wise. I don't know how it was for you, but growing up, um, Asian was just I had to figure out what my position necessarily like because entertainment at the time didn't necessarily have the visual presence of Asian males in the best light. So I was kind of trying to be a chameleon and hop around to every other culture because there were examples that I could see. It wasn't actually until I saw Dragon the Bruce Lee story, which was my gateway into like Bruce Lee. And I was like, oh my God, how have I not seen his movies before? Then I became obsessed, and then everything, the rest is history. But yeah, at that time, like I think my favorite was the Black Ranger because I was a hip hop dancer, so I saw myself within that in that space. So I like fully embraced it. It was an interesting time, but it was super fun, and it was great that we've known each other for that long and can talk about it
Absolutely. It was
and,
so much
and
fun.
how it made us. Yeah, it was so much fun. I often think about our childhood and how awesome it was. It was quite awesome. The things that we cared about back then, I wish were the things I cared about now. You know, all the not really worrying about much at all, but we had a great time. Then our teenage years, we had a great time hanging out. Like, it was all good.
You know, I love that you went into the space of like finding your identity in this industry and essentially kind of facing the rejection for not being able to really show up as yourself because that was unidentified at the moment, right? Besides
At the
some
time,
some slim narratives, right? I think that's probably another reason why we connected because we
yeah,
we, we often were each other's bookends. We were often were the two ethnic kids, you know, like right next to each other, and
yeah, right next to each other or like on the opposite ends.
yeah,
And then I also, like just culturally though, I remember like we were all hanging out too when the Latin explosion became everything. Like when it was Ricky Martin, J Lo, Mark Anthony, Shakira, like we couldn't get enough, right?
yeah,
Santana. Remember that moment in time where
yeah,
it was everywhere, and then there were just people trying to copy all of it.
yep,
Um,
per usual.
but yeah, I remember. I think was that around the time that you first started dabbling in music?
That definitely probably was inspiration. I don't know. The first time I recorded a song was when I presented the award to Whoopi Goldberg for the Thalians Ball. I had to record a whole rap.
Okay.
It
Wow. How old were
yeah,
you for that?
I think I was like 11, 11,
Oh,
10,
wow.
11,
Okay.
12. Yeah, it was way back.
Amazing.
It was, you
Okay.
know, Tim, makeup artist Tim.
Yeah, Tembucharan.
Yes, he was the
He's Thai.
choreographer. Yeah,
I knew
yeah,
he danced, but I had no idea he choreographed. That's awesome.
yeah.
Okay.
But
Very cool. I love Tim.
Tim's amazing. He's gonna get on too. We've been having a little back and forth about it. But yeah, the Latin pop was still great. But still, even in that moment, I didn't identify with them because I don't speak Spanish, and I'm American.
No.
I'm not really Latin, you know, and
And
there
I
wasn't
feel like
space
we were
for me.
taught that.
Yeah,
We were also of the generation where I think Americanized ideals were not enforced but encouraged, right? Like it was almost a model minority thing at the time that I remember subconsciously being taught. It didn't. I wasn't. It wasn't. It was never aggressively put upon. It was just like you felt it in the nuances of the
the
world.
world.
Yeah, that it's say you did a job and instead of being proud of necessarily like what you've accomplished or the work, it was always the validation was always predicated on other people's um, respect, other people's validation, right? So
Right.
it never came from. It was like, well, did you have fun, or what did they think of your work? It was the important question, not the how do you feel about the work. It was were they happy with what you did, and to a degree that's still a part of me now. I think it's kind of a part of it kind of crosses across many cultures. So it's not just specific to diversity, but that is still a big part of my DNA is caring more about like, oh, how do they think about it? Do they like what I'm doing? Or am I actually proud of what I'm doing and I know what I am doing is correct? Like that's still, no matter what, is always going to be a struggle. No matter how much I want to feel like I've gained some confidence, it's still fragile. And I don't know that it'll ever go away. I think that's kind of one of those things like rejection that is a blessing and a curse because the world exists in the thousands of shades of gray, but we seem to live in a society that tends to only want to indulge extremes. You're either this or you're that. But honestly, there's good when the needle starts to go like this at certain times, and it goes like it just never stops moving. You can't just be. We all have duality, and actually more than that. So to try and define yourself as a thing is, you know, it's cliche to say, but that's not possible.
It's easy. It makes it very easy for people to stay in that space, but it's
Yeah.
realistically impossible, especially when you have the awareness of what you're speaking of.
Hmm.
I just have to say, going back to you still kind of carrying that weight on your shoulders, so to speak, of making sure you're representing a specific culture and narrative and all those things. I dare to say, Kevin, that you just being authentic is what you're supposed to be representing, and that you're not supposed to fit into any of those other things because this is your story to tell. And those all might be factors that have led you to be exactly who you are. But this is, I hope that everyone can just appreciate the way that you are going about it, because that's the most important part. And yourself as well.
Thank you. I mean, that's what's so great about this the show that you put together is that the word rejection has so many negatives. But if you just, I mean, honestly, if you reframe it, rejection is, I feel nowadays, is actually a big part of who you are in a good way, right? Obviously, nothing is completely black or white, and there are different situations, but I do feel like rejection has shaped me and led me to be the person that I was meant to be, right? Like, we all know that tale. If you get everything you ask for, you won't appreciate it, one, and who knows what kind of garbage human being you would end up, right? Like, if you never get rejected, in many ways, that kind of sets you up for eventual massive failure because you don't know how to handle it.
Narcissism to the umpteenth degree.
Yeah, and we see what happens when unchecked narcissism goes wild. It's awful. And rejection really teaches you many lessons in being humble, being calm, weathering the storm, learning how to not get seasick on a turbulent boat.
Vessel.
But yeah, but I am thankful for a lot of the rejections, even though at the time it doesn't feel that way. But many times I can pinpoint an inspiration that is predicated by a rejection, right? Like, it made me work harder, and then it got me things because I wanted to work harder.
I would love to know, like, what you think the biggest rejection you faced has gotten you to being where you are today, because you are so accomplished beyond measure. And where that even, I know you have great parents and you have a great sister, so I know that foundation has definitely been a part of it.
For sure.
To why they were just so accepting of you. Your body, you're always me, and I'm sure felt that pressure, and rejection has made you feel like, ooh, okay, I have a lot to live up to because I am so great at so many things. But they've always been, at least from what I witnessed throughout the years, such an amazing, you're just really blessed with a great family to make sure that you have what you need to fulfill your destiny, so to speak.
Yeah, and they've really been able to do a good job at keeping me in check. Like, they were massively supportive. They loved what I did, and they were proud of what I did, but they also kept me in line and
Human.
corrected me. Yeah, kept me human. Didn't just give me praise, right? It wasn't just that. It was a nice mix of both. And I think you need both. Honestly, you need both. I mean, especially in this business where the rest of the world is kind of designed to kiss your ass until they tear you apart.
Right.
It's good to at least come from a foundation that is lovingly doing both. Well, like in the most loving way possible,
that is
getting
love.
You ready. Yeah, it's right. It is a version of love that I have found very useful for me. But as far as like the rejection that shaped my life, I do think it was incremental. I don't think it was one massive event. But I do look back in my past and realize that I was always underneath somebody. I was always taking orders from somebody, and that was a perfect way to learn, right? I wasn't the star right away, or I wasn't in charge right away. I was an assistant or a PA, and honestly, that the whole terms paying your dues, I feel like is kind of getting massively lost in this current generation. Now, I don't want to blanket statement the whole generation, but in light of technology and the way that validation is received, now is instant because of technology and this thing right here. Like I didn't have this, right? So I wasn't constantly being fed other people's successes um, or other people's love for me because everyone's pressing a thumbs up like or giving you a compliment every 5 seconds. So the thing about paying your dues that I find so unfortunate nowadays is that they don't want to. They don't want to pay their dues, right? Because they see on Instagram or TikTok or anything that somebody can get famous off of one video in 1 month and get rich very quick. So a lot of the capacity to accept failure and keep going is starting to fade away because if someone's not successful right away, they quit, which is it's sad because that means there's so much untapped potential that wasn't explored. Which is unfortunate because I do think that you and I particularly grew up in a pay your dues system, right? In every company, dance company we were in, every choreographer we worked with, it was kind of in its own weird way like a fun army. Like you do what you do, there's a regimen. You have to be this role, then you move up to this role. And then even when you move up to that role, you pay it back or you pay respect forward. There's a system. Now people just jump into choreography, speaking specifically about the dance world, but they don't know the process, the business part of it, the politics side of it, the patient part of it. Like there's so much training that goes on that's not on the dance floor, right? It's all like management, how to run a room, how to control people, how to keep your producers calm, how to tell a story. Like there's so many logistical things that people don't kind of earn their dues from anymore because they get famous off of TikTok and then immediately get hired as a choreographer, show up to set and not know what the etiquette is. Like that's it's unfortunate that is starting. I'm starting to notice that a lot more, but obviously with every negative I'm dealt with a lot of positives too. Like I've recently been kind of immersed back in the dance world and there are a lot of young people who are working their ass off. So it is nice to see that kind of emphasis on craftsmanship is still there, but you gotta accept it and seek it out sometimes.
I think greatness is something that is instilled in certain people from birth, and I think that will
Yeah.
always exist. And a
Uh-huh.
part of being great is that innate understanding that it takes work, and you're constantly figuring out how to get better, and whatever means necessary or whatever world you're involved in, you find your way to achieve that level of what you know you're capable of. I think what we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing now is a lot of people that aren't really made like that, but they're getting it. So then, therefore, they realize through that rejection and through that process, oh, this isn't actually me. This isn't what I
Mm-hmm.
really, who I really am. This is just a part of that journey. And in those cases, that rejection was there to actually serve them, to really put them in alignment with what they could be really great at, what really they are in alignment to be doing with their life. But does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure it does. And it's so a lot of people who are born with that trait sometimes it's unfortunate that sometimes they lose it and it's really sad when you watch somebody lose that edge that they were born with due to the outside forces, you know.
Been there.
What I'm really, yeah, and it's really sad to see, and this is such a cliche statement. I know we've been saying this for decades, but so many people don't stick with the thing that they were passionate about because they get turned off by the rejection and then they end up in a life that they never wanted to do in the first place because money drives everything. I can't ignore that. And so they jump ship and then they find themselves in a place where they might be making money but they're miserable. So like trying to find that balance is very difficult. And specifically in this business it's very competitive, and but if you have that tenacity to not to be as stubborn to everyone and say fuck that, I'm no I can't do anything else, this is all I want to do, then I gotta say, it, it will happen to you. Maybe not in the way that you thought it was going to happen to you, because it never does. It never works out the way you thought it was going to happen. But the best version of that dream will happen to you. You just don't know what it is, and that's part of the fun of it, right? You can't expect everything you wrote down on a list to happen the way that you wrote it down. So,
Yeah, I feel like you're talking to me right now, Kevin. Okay, this was fun. Not supposed to be about me. No, but I really hear what you're saying, because I've definitely through the years didn't expect to be where I am. Lost that thing, and sometimes I'm like, ooh, can I keep going? Do I want to keep going? But there's this little voice behind me that keeps me still growing, and that I know that's enough. And it's like, it's just, you just have to trust in the timing at that point, and really just letting it unfold, and really being in tune with like where your heart is taking you, and not
yeah,
pushing that away just because other forces may not recognize that. But it definitely, and I know you know what that feels like. You know, I mean, you were really lucky though, because in the best way possible, the people you were under were really big deals. So
yeah.
you
Wayne, I
got,
mean, Wayne.
yeah, you know,
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, yeah, they were. I got very lucky with some of the mentors that I've been able to. Luckily, I will say that I can't ignore that there's some luck involved with being in the right place at the right time, right?
you still got to show
Um,
up though, and produce, which you do, by the way.
that's the
That's
problem. That's the
yeah,
thing, is that, like, there's a certain amount of luck that gets into it, but you have to back it up after,
yeah.
in order for it to work. But yeah, I pay respect to all of my teachers. One of the biggest influences in my life has always been Wade Robson, who kind of brought me into the whole part of this world, right? Like, I was just backup dancing for fun. I had a love for tech and editing and music and movies and TV, and that really either that fueled me to stay within that world. But him and I working together was instrumental to my career. Obviously, I can't not pay respect to Marguerite Derricks, who was also like the prime example of work hard. Work hard, show up, take it fucking seriously. Um, and that's a great system to be taught at a very young age. So I was very happy to learn that kind of regimen. Um, and I see that kind of regimen in different departments in my life now. Like, I find a lot of comfort in the job that I'm at now, working with the stunt team. And I wonder if it's because in many ways it feels like a dance community, because it's all like physical. Um, it kind of run like an army in a weird, like, there is a respectable hierarchy that's not abusive, right? There's like, if your teacher tells you to do something, you go and get it done, right? You have to wash the windows with newspaper, you do it. And I noticed that when I'm on set, when the stunt coordinator tells his team, I need you to go get this, they run. They fucking run and grab it. And it's almost like a dojo mentality
Yeah.
in a way too. So martial arts, dance, and stunts all kind of have kept me comfortable moving from position to position. But yeah, I was fortunate to be around a lot of really good examples, a lot of good teachers. I learned a lot too from Brian Friedman, who was a big collaborator in Brittany, and also I got to say he helped me so much with such grace back then, because I was young. I can't deny that I got very lucky at a young age to be responsible for
The biggest pop
big
star in the world's career.
things. Yeah, 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 but but it also taught me that I had to rely on my collaborators. I've seen too many people at that time think that only one person can come up with all the answers, and I
Right.
quickly realized that's not true. Um, so even to this day, a big part of my process is collaboration with people that I trust. And Brian was fantastic. You were there for all of that, right? Like, back in
Yep.
the days, like, we were all working with Brittany, and Brian was there. Columbus was there. He was my um, my partner at the time during all of that. And so I was able to be lucky to find really, really special people. I mean, look at you and I, we're still friends and we've worked together on some of the biggest things possible. And here we are talking about it.
Yeah.
And now we're old in a way,
Yeah,
kind of. I
at a
mean, I
supple,
never,
supple age of our
yeah,
25, right? Like, just
yeah, I
youthful.
feel old, but I know that I kind of am now. Like when it comes to just the younger generation coming up, I'm always used to being the youngest one, and that's not the case anymore.
Mm.
I call people kid now. Oh,
Oh.
like that kid's great. He's got a lot of promise. Yeah, it's really funny to kind of be on the other side.
It's so appropriate too. I mean, I know we really haven't like been specific in getting to this place of our conversation right now, but it's all just been effortless and just showing like, yeah, the progress, the rejection, the not getting it, the learning, the moving forward regardless of your surroundings. And I mean, here you are being Kevin at his supple age of which I won't say, and still being yourself though in all of this, right? Like you haven't lost yourself. I know that you have. We all have. It's what our 20s are really about, you know.
Mhm.
But you are here and thriving and doing better than ever. What is the thing that keeps pushing you right now? That keeps giving you that?
I always feel like I'm in the same position. I'm always, no matter how many things I find myself working on or consider what a lot of people would consider like successful, I never can fully grasp that concept because I think it's fleeting. I think it can go as fast as it can come. And the big reason for that is because of rejection, though. Like I have been rejected so many times in life that you kind of learn to not let it affect you as much anymore and just take the good parts. But that's a learning process, man. I mean, rejection in its early phases is brutal. It's absolutely brutal. But I think because I truly felt like I didn't know anything else, I had to keep moving forward. I mean, the only reason I give a lot of like, listen, I did my first movie was called Fame. I had a blast making it, but the movie didn't necessarily turn out the way that I wanted. Um, and also,
Directing, by the way, you directed it, but for the people that don't know, he was the director of Fame.
yeah, I directed the 2009 remake of Fame, and it was a hard thing for me to do because the process was fun. Um, I was very happy while we were filming it, but then I was not used to the politics of the film business, and I was 24, so I kind of got pushed around a little bit, and then the movie was not received well. It made money, but it obviously did not live up to my expectations. And I felt like that was a massive crush to me because I felt like I disappointed the community that I grew up in and respected, and I did a disservice to the group of artists that I was around growing up. Oh shit, did I lose you?
There we go.
There you are.
Boom.
Where did you lose me?
You were saying you thought you were disrespecting or letting down
Yeah,
the community.
I yeah, I was very sad with what I considered the failure of that movie because I felt like I disappointed the community in which I grew up in, the community that made me who I was, which was the artist community, the dance community, the theater, the performance community of the arts. Um, and I'm sure that there's many ways I can pinpoint where it all went wrong, but ultimately, as a director, you have to take that weight. I was massively depressed after that, after all of that, because I was like, talk about projecting. I thought that that movie was going to be the thing that did it for me. I was like, yeah, that's gonna okay. And obviously, it didn't. The movie didn't turn out the way I wanted. We shot a PG-13 movie, but it got cut down to a PG rating, which meant we couldn't explore a lot of the darker themes in the movie. But after being depressed for a bit, I picked myself back up and I said, you know what, I'm going to take a gamble. And I coughed up my own money and I went and shot a short film based around Mortal Kombat. Now, if it wasn't for me doing that, I pretty much can guarantee that I wouldn't be sitting here at the moment. Um, because I dusted off my wounds and said, you know what, fuck all this. I want to make something on my own with the people that I trust and collaborate with no interference from people who don't understand what the project is. And because of that, the fans loved it, and it was a huge online hit. I lost a lot of money. I even got into an unfortunate legal problem because I shot all that stuff without paperwork because I was just doing it with my own money, and I just put that stuff online, right? So there was another added hit to the success that I considered Mortal Kombat. It was like, oh, I failed. Oh, I got a win, and then it was like, oh shit, I got sued. And then it wasn't until about a year later I really started seeing how that short defined the career that I exist in now. And that was because it was action driven. It was the kind of stories I wanted to tell, the genre, the look. Um, because I wasn't going to be given action stuff. I was never going to be given action, horror, thriller, because I was known as the dance guy. So the only conversations I was in were movies that were dance related, like a Step Up or what was the other one? Like there were a lot of other little ones that actually never made it. No, did I lose you again?
It might be mine. It's
Oh,
this heat
oh,
in
I
New
hear
York.
you.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, I can see you now. Where did you lose me?
You were saying Step Up. You're talking about how it wasn't Step Up or the other smaller things.
Well, no, it wasn't that Step Up was smaller. It's just that I was only being looked at for dance movies,
That's what
and
I was
I
just.
knew that as much as I love dance movies, like I watch all of them, I know that other people can make them better, right? Like I grew up, as you said early on in this conversation, as a nerd, and so I wanted to have a piece of material because you want to know what? No one's going to believe in you more than you. So if you're not willing to bet on yourself, why the hell would anyone else? So that kind of, I think that drive that I got my shit together and shot it on my own proved a lot of things to a lot of people. Then I was in different conversations, but you have to keep doing that. The second you think that you've accomplished something, you need to not. You can pat yourself on the back and live in that joy, but you can't rest in that joy and become complacent. Like you have to keep fucking going, or else all that momentum will just get lost. So I think rejection has constantly been an asset for me because it's been a refuel. It's been a, oh, okay, well, what did I learn from that? Let me try again. And it's not easy, but rejection has shaped my entire career, right? And in many ways, it kind of put me in the place that I was supposed to be. It's hard to look at it that way. It really is hard to look at it that way. But history has shown so many times how rejection has made people. I mean, when you hear about like stories like Lucille Ball or like you go, how the hell did no one think she was funny? What are you talking about? Like all the biggest people have been rejected in massive ways. Um, but then they ended up where they were supposed to be because I do believe that it works itself out. What no matter what you believe, I do think that the universe has some weird way that's unexplainable of locking things in appropriately. Um,
Even when you can't
so
see it, even when you can't see it,
no,
it's going to do it for you. But a lot of people can get so stuck with not seeing any of it that then they miss those signals and those placements that will help you get there. And they stay on that path of just being afraid of rejection then because it's impacted them in such a negative way. And before I forget, I want to say, it's such an amazing thing that you were able to do Mortal Kombat and show you in it. because I know when you did fame, there's outside forces, and so you can't trust your own voice. But you taking on Mortal Kombat, you said, which is not an easy thing to do, Kevin. You said, I'm going to trust my voice, even though these big heads were telling me not to when I had to listen to them. I'm going to say, you know what? If I'm going to show up, I'm going to show up as me fully and put that out there. And that's why it became what it was. I mean, it's such an incredible thing that you were willing to do that, and you did it. And that showed you how to keep going.
It was a big gamble, and it cost a lot of mental stress between a lawsuit and the money part of it. I can't, ignore is not difficult. But this was also in 2009. Like, man, if I had the tools that people have now, like YouTube alone is the biggest tutorial learning program on planet Earth. And all the tools are getting smaller, they're getting cheaper. You can listen, if you have an iPhone, you can shoot a movie. You can. You can shoot a good movie on this. So there's a lot of less excuses now to stop. But you got to believe in yourself. You got to take the rejection and try your best to learn from it, because I know that it can crush somebody's heart and soul and passion quickly. I get it. It's done that to me. But luckily, I've been around a good group of people who's able to help me pick up the pieces along the way and help support. And I can't deny that I'm very fortunate to have a good family, a good group of friends, and now I have a great wife who supports me like crazy. Who we've all known. We've known each other since we were little kids. So
Hi,
it's
Ashley.
like a small. Yeah, she's downstairs, but it's like in a weird way, like our life is called like small town Los Angeles. Like it's in a weird thing. We have like this small town relationship, all of us. But obviously LA is a gargantuan entity. But yeah, rejection, I'm thankful for it. I mean, I know it's really easy to say that when you feel like you're on the other side, but but it's a lesson to be learned, and you can only really learn the merits of those lessons if you let yourself go through it. And also, there's a lot more help these days. I think more people are able to ask for help nowadays. Back then it was not necessarily easy to commiserate with other people about failures and emotions and the mental stress and illness that comes along with all of that. And especially, I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I can say that within my community, like especially the Asian American community, you just don't talk about it. You don't talk about those things. You just push it down and keep going. So, but I had a blend of both, that kind of white knuckled kind of enforcement in my life, but also the soft hand of therapy and people who were able to talk about emotions and being around, I want to say, sensitive people is a great thing to be, because you're never alone. That is something that I have truly realized and was actually a very big savior for me. Right? I think in many ways that's why a lot of people get very religious, is because it's ultimately you're never alone. Right? You always have Jesus on your side or Buddha on your side. Like, you're never alone. But that's just, if you're not religious, that truth still exists. You are not alone, and you're not unique to your pain. And the second you realize that, it makes things easier. It really does. It does make things easier.
It's easier to get up after falling.
Yeah, but you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable, but to the right people.
Correct.
To the right people. You show your vulnerability to the wrong person,
and they will
you can get
you alive.
Yeah. Yes.
Eat you alive.
So just be careful. So
absolutely.
yeah.
I was gonna say that I lost it. Sorry.
No, it's
Good.
fine.
Gonna edit this part out. That's for sure.
All good.
Um, anything? Where was it? Where did I get? You said something. It's so in my. We're doing this. It's so fun because I'm like listening and like absorbing and loving everything you're saying. But then I'm also like, oh, then ask about this and bring that up, and then I get lost because I get lost in your
Yeah,
words.
yeah, because
So,
it's a mix, right? No, it's a
um,
mix. It's a mix. But yeah, but we can really talk about anything. I mean, I really think this is a great platform because, at least within my orbit, I don't think a lot of people talk about this part, and how important
yeah,
this
and
stuff is.
there we are. I think it's the part. It's you brought up in the Asian community. I think it's just in all communities, and I think it's societal, and I believe it's generational, especially from like generations back, where it was more convenient just to swallow it and put it down and move forward because that actually brought about the type of success that was available and important then compared to
At that
now
time.
at that time in that time and space genuinely
That's right.
truly. And I think right now people are, I don't want to say there's more sensitive people or more people with like a broader awareness, but people are realizing that that modality isn't serving them in finding their happiness and being able to like look at rejection and move past it, because what it's doing, especially nowadays with social media and with these conversations being had and the information be accessible but through so many platforms, that you can't just hold it there anymore because it's going to be seen whether you want to see it or not. You kind of have to
That's
deal
right.
with it. And
Hmm.
thankfully, for the up to the latter of that all, to the opposite side, is that it's all available then for you to be able to have these conversations and find the words or the people that can help you then feel seen or help be that
Hmm.
hand, like you said, community, that even recognizing like what's around you, doing this. Like I got emotional last week when I was doing an episode because I am one of those people that forget just how loved I am and how important the people are around me and how many times they keep reaching their hands up out and pulling me up. And when I have these conversations with you all, it there's nothing like it. There is this
Yeah.
immense gratitude, and it makes life so much more full and beautiful. And it's that inspiration, it's that drive that you need, like you said, to like make it happen, get up, keep doing your things, because you have everything you need. When you have the support, when you have the love, you can keep going to get rejected, because that
Yeah.
rejection, they're never going to reject you in that space of which feels hopelessness and like you can't move or paralyzed from it. They're the one, you have that surrounding around, like surroundings. So I guess never take that for granted. And I
No.
understand, and there are people that don't have it. I understand that, but I think maybe go out there, go meet some people, go start
Yeah.
having authentic, vulnerable conversations. Not everyone's going to hear you. Some people are going to think you're
No.
crazy. They're not going to understand the language you speak. But the more you keep speaking your language, someone will pick up on it, and you'll be able to have a conversation where you hear each other, and that's when you start building community. That's when you start building
Okay.
support.
And community is so important. I will say that growing up, I think I was under the impression that success was singular. Um, because a lot of the things that I was watching, the movies that I was inspired by, were always about. Uh-oh. Oh, there you are. The movies that I was watching was all about just one person fighting tooth and nail to make something happen for themselves when the world was against them. Um, but if I reframe it and watch it now, I am now seeing the parts in where the community around him is the reason why he made it. And I think it's just because I have more context now, I can see it finally. I can see that that
Mm-hmm.
was ultimately the story, was that it was the community that was so important in uplifting a person. And I learned that slowly over time, because for a long time I thought it was like it was all on me, or I had to do it and I had to keep my secrets and I couldn't let anyone know that I didn't know what I was doing, or but I think I learned that young, because when I was young and dealing with some of these bigger tours, everywhere I went, I felt like everyone around me didn't think I deserved to be there. And is some of that true? Absolutely. Like you can't deny that. Like I know that I was young, and when you're doing a tour with like that, you're dealing with a lot of personalities. So, but I will say, 60% of my energy was trying to get those people to like me.
Hmm.
Um, and I wonder if that's just a adolescent thing, a cultural thing, or just like I that is what I cared about so much,
It's a human
was,
thing.
yeah, but it was a false version of myself,
Hmm.
right? So I have found now that the best relationships that I have, not only personally but work wise, is when I am vulnerable with the people that I would not have been vulnerable with in the past. And
Yeah.
maybe the times have changed, but in a lot of meetings that I have now with producers or studio executives or heads of studios, like, the hard truth is that we're all human. It doesn't matter what position you're in. We've all had shared messy emotions that we can relate to. So I have found now that my conversations with these people have shifted more organically and more impactfully when you're able to put your cards on the table, and not just put up this fake facade of strength and know-it-all ism, right? Like I think more people are attracted to human nature, like just being human now. Like you don't have to put on a false front all the time. Um, and my relationships have gotten much closer. I
Oh,
see a
please.
shift.
Sorry, I had a cough. I couldn't hold it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, all good, all good. But yeah, like I have found that my relationship with people who are like my bosses have shifted because of that kind of vulnerability now, right? Um, and I vividly seen where one relationship will dramatically shift after one vulnerable conversation. All of a sudden, we're like really close now, and they like the guard is all of a sudden down, and then the work becomes better, right? Because I think we're just so used to putting up all these false faces around so many people, and it's all fake. It's all fake.
Well,
So
us especially. That wasn't
yeah,
something that you did when we were younger.
no,
That is
never.
not the way you. It was all fake. There was no. It was all just pretending, and you just fit that role, and then everyone stayed in their lane, and you just stayed in that role, and you did what you're supposed to do, and nobody really connected because of the machine. That's how it would be well oiled. But now it's. I wonder if it's an age thing, Kevin, because I know for me too, that is the most incremental part of success is being authentic and human and vulnerable and having real conversations with people, even in our industry. That could have never happened in my 20s or my early 30s because they don't want that from you.
No,
Maybe it's because they want that product and they want to produce you. But when you get to our age in this industry, you're at an age now where there needs to be substance. And once there's that substance, then there's the recognition, so to speak. You hear
that's
what
right.
does that? You know what I mean by it? Yeah. It's a
No,
different
I
world.
do.
It's a shift that happens.
And it's a good shift. I mean, I just find my relationship so much stronger now that I have been willing to accept certain things about myself. Um, I think both you and I grew up in the last phases of like macho masculine strength with no problems
Yep.
concept, right? Especially coming from two cultures that have that embedded in their society,
Yes.
kind of that uber macho.
Muchísimo.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's not. It's in every culture, and I think that to a high degree that we felt like we needed to be that. Like I remember having some older cousins or uncles saying like that. He's like, Asian people pride ourselves in not talking about what's wrong. I was like, that's that's interesting. It's like, oh, they're like, we wear it as a badge of strength, and I do like that. That's shifting a little bit, right? Obviously, there you got to balance both and pick the moments where you can be one or the other, but ultimately, living more honestly has become an asset in a business that has been historically superficial.
Yes.
Um, so I find a lot of more inspiration, a lot more organic ideas, and a lot stronger art that comes from that place, that comes from that vulnerable place. Um, and that's been a learning, that's been a life of learning, though. It was
It's a
not
lifetime.
right away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and also because as you even when you say that, it's like think about trying to have these conversations earlier on in life with people.
never.
It's going to be yeah, you're just not at that level of awareness to actually
Mm-mm.
connect and see things from the perspective of which we're talking about, which is then when you can form the genuine connections and relationships. I mean, it's art. Art is
Yeah,
something that is made from pure vulnerability.
and
um,
messiness. Yeah,
and yes, it's about
yeah.
all of that. And
Hmm.
I think we're just messy in our 20s, so that we don't really know how to articulate then the energy behind it besides just being so in the chaos of it all,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. That's right. And it's watching movies when we were growing up, it was always the lesson was always there. Like there was a reason why there's so many movies about two characters who come from a different walks of life, who are set in their ways, who get thrust into a larger than life situation that is life or death, but together they survive it. And because of that high, the crazy situation they're in, their vulnerabilities get stripped down. They drop the act. They learn about the messiness of each other, and then by the end of it, they're either in love or they're incredibly close, right? Because that's true. It's true. You strip all the bullshit away, put yourself in like a life or death situation where none of that shit matters anymore, and you come out on the other side, and you are so close to that other person, and it happens in everyday life, and I witness it all the time now, which is but I wasn't able to see it before. What I was able to see was, oh, that person is unrelenting. Oh, that person is a hard ass. Oh, that person does not waver, and is kind of a dick, but they're the boss. And so that kind of energy was put on a pedestal for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
That whole saying, "Oh yeah, he's a fucking asshole, but he's a genius." Like you
Yes.
can't. That doesn't.
Yes.
Those two things are not. I don't know. It's like we've given a lot of excuses to that kind of behavior, and that's all going away. Um, and
Absolutely.
great because
Thankfully.
yeah, it's really nice to witness that now because when we grew up, it wasn't that. There were many times where I felt like, am I being weak? Do I need to be more of an asshole? Do I need to be a
Totes.
harder? I don't know. Maybe I'll try acting like it, but it wasn't me. And that was the thing, is that it was never me.
Or am I too nice? Am I being too nice? Am I
Yeah.
being, like, oh, well, now I'm being an asshole though. Now they don't like me, and it's kind of like how I talk about casting directors. Every casting
Mm,
director has preferences, and it's kind of
mm.
impossible to figure out every single one of them and like know what they all prefer. You just kind of have to
Yeah, you
show
won't
up and do
know.
your best, be your best self. You can't be so worried about these little things that they say they care about, because at the end of the day, all those things are going to be let go when you just show up and you're there, when you are giving them what they're looking for, which is beyond all of the other things, right?
That's right.
And
That's
that,
right. 100% right. So it's been a journey. I'm glad that I'm still on it with you.
likewise.
That I know we lost touch for a bit, then we reconnect, but the people that matter the most in your life never disappear. So, and it was meant to be this way. And it was meant for us to go through all of this shit together, to now sit here and talk about all of this together with kind of like with an open heart.
Absolutely.
And hopefully it just sets an example, or maybe somebody heard one or two sentences from this and it'll help them. You never know. You never know who's listening. That's the thing that I've realized, is that you never know. Um, and it's helped me a lot too, finally be able to listen to people. We're so preoccupied with the chaos and loudness in our own minds that we sometimes shut off what's being taught to us that's right in front of our face. So if you put your self-importance aside for a minute and listen with vulnerability and humbleness and humility, you'll feel good after. Like
Absolutely.
I've learned that you feel better by dropping all of that and just taking in the lesson. But you have to be willing to receive it. Right? That the ego has to step aside a lot. Um, Never let it go away, because it's also a good fuel, right? But it's a good balance of both. But
Everything everything's a balance, like you said from earlier. It's not black and white. There's a balance
never
of
is.
it never is. And it's really important that whatever your modality is, that you're able to just silence your mind for a second, because yes, then you'll be able to hear the voices that you should be listening to that are out in the mix of all this chaos. But really, more importantly, that inner voice is right there guiding you, and you can listen to that. And when you listen to that, it will make sure that you are hearing the right things.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
what if you got to go to nature, go to a waterfall, be around someone you love, take your dog on a walk, whatever it is. Make sure you're making time for yourself. Make sure you're taking time for
Always.
yourself in this chaos that
Always.
exists in this world that we live in right now.
You really do. You have to take that time, and you also, like you said, you got to listen to that little voice inside. Because I often joke about, like, for me to put it into context in my own head, is that we're all like oddly controlled schizophrenics. Like, there are five of us in our
A
brains,
million percent, yes.
and there's like one asshole roommate who is like locked in the room, who wants to get out every now and then and cause some shit. um then you have the
Yes.
OCD roommate, and then you have the sensitive one, and it's like that movie Inside Out, right? There's like
Yep.
many control systems in there. It's just a matter of who's in the driver's seat, and you have to be able to be an observer of all those personalities and realize what's happening. So it's amazing how many of us live in here, how many different versions of us are in this head, in this weird brain of ours. Um, but looking at it from a third person perspective sometimes gives you all the context you need. But you have to be willing to do that and accept your own problems, accept your own faults. Like, that's been a big learning lesson too, is accepting and knowing when it is actually your fucking fault. Like,
Taking
like you,
accountability.
oh, it means so much, so much. You learn so much. You become a better person because of it, right? It's like we're so on defense mode 24/7 that sometimes it is good to be like, no, I that's my problem. That was my fault. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did that. Yeah. But
Sorry,
you sit
that was
around blaming everyone else.
the bully roommate. That was the bully roommate, and yes, I take accountability and responsibility for that. I am sorry. I shouldn't have
Correct.
listened to him.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you listen, you're going to slip up all the time. No problem. That's human. But it's just being able to know that and accept it, because being in defense mode and saying it's everyone else's fault all the time is incredibly isolating, and oddly makes you angry and aggressive, because you're blaming everyone else and you're angry about it. But also, I think secretly in the back of your head, you know that that defense mechanism is nothing more than a protective defense system. It's like it's protecting its own vulnerability from feeling the things that might make you sad. But the emotion that comes from suppressing it is often anger, bitterness, resentment, coldness, and isolation. But if you're willing to accept that you are part of the vulnerability that is the human experience, then it's just a better one. It's a better experience.
Kevin, it's really, really, really awesome to know that we've been able to share a lifetime together, and
Yeah,
we're
it
having
really has.
conversations like this. And I look forward to just having more of them with you. You know, we share such a rare thing. The experiences that we've gone through, only we understand, and it's just I'm grateful that we always will have each other through all this. You know,
Agreed, always. And we like here's the thing: is there's not many people who can be in your life who can say that they've experienced the same massive highs and massive lows. And
yeah,
that's been a learning curve, especially this business provides that. Exhilarating highs that you'll never be able to capture again, and sometimes the most crushing lows. I mean, it's
yeah.
unfortunate. I think that's why a lot of people tend to look for other answers in substances because they don't know how to deal with it. But I got to say, friends are the best drugs.
That's a good one. It's so
Yeah,
I concur with that 1,000,000%. That's the only high you really need. When you have real friends in your life, that is the high that is going to be fulfilling to getting you in that heart and that mind to what you're seeking
agreed.
to be at. So
Best
that's a
best drug is community.
community. Hey, I want to start ending this thing starting with you because my friend gave me the idea when we did one together, and it's going to be like
Okay.
this. Hi, my name is Gustavo, and I'm a reject.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kevin, and I'm a reject.
And guess what? We're pretty freaking awesome people still. So go get rejected. Thank you,
Good
Kevin.
shit. All
Thank you
right.
so
Thank you,
much.
man. We'll
And
talk soon. Hopefully, you make it back to LA.
yes, fingers crossed. All right, thanks, Kevin.
Sounds good. And I'll see you when you get back.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and share. But most importantly, go out there today and get rejected, you beautiful rejects. I am Gustavo Victor Carr, and this is Rejection and Reflection. Until next time.